Okay, so once upon a time, there was an ordinary man whose name was Charles Darwin, who studied for the clergy with the idea of becoming a professional full-time preacher. And that didn't happen. Hey, yep, it's me on the balcony again. It's cold, but it is sunny. It is a gorgeously sunny day, and it is quite beautiful, and I'm just enjoying the sunshine today. Yeah. Anywho, I'm going to talk briefly about Charles Darwin, a historical footnote, one of several men who in the early to mid 19th century helped us to understand how evolution works. And the one man who young earth creationists insist is responsible for all the ills and evils in the world, having invented every social distortion and depravity that has existed since long before he was born, but he somehow managed to invent them. And I want to talk about the idea that Charles Darwin invented atheism and that Charles Darwin invented racism. Two blatantly false statements. Atheism, of course, has been endemic to humanity since, well, the dawn of humanity. And in fact, Darwin himself never even achieved atheism. Although he left Christianity and became a deist, he never became an atheist. He insisted that there had to be some kind of a God in the universe. This was Darwin's personal religious opinion, and it has nothing to do with his scientific research. Darwin's scientific research, of course, stands on its own, along with Wallace's scientific research and Huxley's scientific research. We mustn't forget those two men who were also at the center of the development of our understanding of evolution. So, we've gotten that bit out of the way. Now to address the claim that Darwin invented racism. Darwin, of course, grew up in a racist society. He was a proper Englishman, and so, of course, even as a small boy, he was told that the English race was created essentially superior to all other races. That the English race was greater than the Negro race of Africa, that it was greater than the Chinese race of China, and it was greater than the degenerate races, the Arabs, the Hindus, and the Irish, who were all deemed to be barely human. Yeah. And this was what Darwin was taught as a child, in church and in school, as was taught to every Englishman at the time, in church and in school, and which remained at the heart of the British educational system until, dare I say it, well into the 1950s. Yeah. Disturbing. Very disturbing, yes. No. The fact is that our modern conception of racism also predates Darwin, as does the idea of scientific racism. Modern racism, the idea of race as an absolute based on skin color, was invented in the 1600s. It was invented 150 years before Charles Darwin was born. Interesting. And it was invented in America. It was a uniquely American idea for a very long time, for the first 100 years of its existence. But then in the 1750s, a bunch of English and German naturalists got a hold of it and expanded upon it. So what had begun in America in the 1750s very quickly spread through Europe in the early 1800s. Yeah. I oops there, don't worry about it. In any case, the German and English racial fantasists, racial theorists, of the 17 and early 1800s came up with some truly bizarre notions, which Darwin would have been introduced to in school as a schoolboy. Here's the funny part, though. Darwin never bought into it. As a schoolboy, Darwin always expressed doubts about the prevailing scientific racism that he was taught as a child. And as an adult, he arrived at the conclusion that all humans were equally, well, human. And that there was actual scientific evidence to support this. And he presented scientific evidence to support the notion that all humans are human. If you read The Descent of Man, if you read Origins of Species, you will find that he mentions that all humans are, well, humans. In particular in The Descent of Man, where he literally talks extensively about human evolution as opposed to plant and animal evolution. Origin of Species is mostly about plants and animals. If creationists would read that, they would know it. Descent of Man, however, is about human evolution. And throughout The Descent of Man, we see Charles Darwin challenging the prevailing racist ideologies of his time, knocking them down with scientific facts, and exposing their utter absurdity. So much for the creationist myth that Charles Darwin invented racism. It existed long before he was born, and he was quite instrumental in demonstrating the sheer absurdity of it. Not that I expect creationists to be honest enough to acknowledge this fact.